Today the bell tolls for a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and our covenant to affirm and promote that principle. May the bells resounding bring our search for truth and meaning to unfold into understanding and thence into love. Good morning and welcome to virtual worship with Community Unitarian Universalist Congregation in White Plains. I'm the Reverend Meredith Garmon, Community UU Minister, coming to you from the congregation's sanctuary today.
Meredith, we aren't seeing your video yet, but maybe in a minute. Good morning, I'm Tracy Brenneman, Community UU Religious Educator in my home in Westchester County. Adam Kent, our music director, has the day off.
Welcome to this home of religious liberalism. What makes a religion liberal is these 5 shared values and understandings.
1, learning. Revelation is continuous. Meaning has not been finally captured. Nothing is complete, and thus nothing is exempt from criticism.
2, freedom. All relations must rest on free consent. Because coercions may be subtle, the work of detecting and removing them is ongoing.
3, justice. We are morally obligated to direct our effort toward the establishment of a just and loving community. Hence, the voice of the prophet is central and indispensable.
4, institution building. We cannot become whole, nor advance learning, freedom, and justice without good institutions.
And 5, hope. Things could get better. There's no guarantee they will, but through our efforts, they really might.
Today is the 4th Sunday of winter. The waxing crescent moon was new last Tuesday night. To all our visitors, we know you have many choices for being transported spiritually. Thank you for flying Unitarian Universalist.
If you are a first-time attendee and comfortable doing so, please introduce yourself in the chat. The chat is also for reporting any technical issues. When you need to send a chat, please make sure you're writing to all attendees and panelists, not just panelists, so everyone will see your message. If you're visiting us this morning, you'll find a link for the order of service on our website at cuucwp.org. There's also a phone number for dialing in by phone if you need to, and resources to help keep us connected during this time. We have a number of ways you can support and care for our community. For January, our Share the Plate funds go to the Interfaith Council for New Americans. We're able to take contributions via PayPal for your pledge, the plate share, the minister's discretionary fund. You'll find the donate button on our homepage at cuucwp.org.
During the pandemic, through the discretionary fund, I've been giving out about $1,000 a month to real hardship situations. That fund now has less than $500. Help if you can.
Thank you for bringing your bright presence this morning. Our shared light is a beacon of hope.
On the 4th Sunday of each season, we dedicate our chalice to our 4th principle, the free and responsible search for truth and meaning.
Hi, I'm Joe Majak. As the chair of the board for this congregation, I welcome you. Did you know that effective January 12th, New York State has expanded COVID-19 vaccine eligibility to include anyone 65 or older? If you want to receive a vaccination, please use the state's online tool to find a location. There is also a phone hotline. The COVID-19 vaccination hotline is open 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. 7 days a week for scheduling vaccination appointments for eligible New Yorkers. The number is area code 833-697-4829. The state's online tool and hotline will help you determine if you are eligible for a vaccine, and if so, show nearby locations where the vaccine is being administered. It is your responsibility to then call the location and make an appointment to receive the vaccine, or, where possible, book one online. News like this kindles the light of hope as we all stick together through the worst of the COVID-19 pandemic. By the time spring comes around, we'll all be looking forward to warming temps, longer daylight, and the COVID-19 vaccinations beginning to make a difference. We just need to stick together and help each other through the low points we may encounter along the way. Now it's time to light our chalice. On the fourth Sunday of this season, we dedicate our chalice to the fourth principle of our faith, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Please join with me in the chalice lighting words from Napoleon Lovely. We light the chalice to affirm that new light is ever waiting to break through to illumine our way. That new truth is ever waiting to break through to enlighten our minds. And that new love is ever waiting to break through to warm our hearts.
When Lelio Sozzini died in 1562 at the age of only 37, he left behind little more than a trunk of books and manuscripts, inherited by his nephew Fausto Sozzini, aged 22. Young Fausto had begun early to reject orthodoxy. 3 years before, at age 19, he'd been denounced by the Inquisition. He'd fled to Zurich, and it was there that he received his inheritance, his uncle Lelio's papers. Fausto Sozzini studied his uncle's legacy with care. From those manuscripts he discovered an insistence that reason is an authority equal to Scripture. Within months of encountering his dead uncle's works, he wrote an essay, his first published work, in which he took the anti-Trinitarian position that Jesus was divine by office rather than by nature. Within a year, we know from a letter he wrote, he rejected the immortality of the soul. Still, in 1563, Fausto returned to Italy, outwardly conforming to the church, and served as a secretary in the Florentine court for 12 years. Though he later regarded these years as wasted, during this time he wrote On the Authority of the Holy Scriptures, widely influential for viewing scriptures as historical texts. Leaving Florence in 1575, Fausto Sozzini moved to Basel and devoted himself to close study of the Bible. In 1578, at age 38, he finished On Jesus Christ the Savior, in which he attacked the doctrine of substitutionary atonement, the idea that the sufferings of Christ are accepted by the divine justice as a substitute for the punishment due for the sins of the world. Rather, argued Fausto Sozzini, Christ is our Savior because his teaching and his example show us the way of salvation, not because his death paid off our debt of sin.
Good morning, everyone. This is Adam Kent, the music director at CUUC. In honor of Martin Luther King weekend, I'm pleased to provide you with selections by composers of African descent this morning. These performances were recorded at recent Odd Tempo with Adam home concert broadcasts. For the centering music, I've chosen an arrangement of Deep River, the spiritual, in an arrangement by the British-born composer of African descent, Samuel Coleridge Taylor.
If you have a joy, sorrow, or milestone that you'd like to share, I invite you to enter it into the chat now. As you do so, please make the first word be either joy, sorrow, or milestone, so that as I scan through the chat stream during the prayer, I can easily identify which messages are meant for me to say out loud. And as always, that part of the prayer where I speak your words will not be included when this service is posted later on YouTube. Invocation words from Reverend Kathleen Rollins. We gather especially to remember Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but not only him, for there were thousands of unnamed women and men who put their bodies and lives on the line so that all may be free. And yet freedom comes at a cost, and we know that racism and homophobia, ageism and ableism, sexism and classism, all of these often unacknowledged realities prevent us from fully knowing one another, from creating the beloved community spoken of by prophets and ordinary persons alike. May the work of Dr. King continue to eradicate injustice wherever and whenever we encounter it. May we continue to speak out against injustice, to speak even if we are afraid our words will not be heard or welcomed. May the spirit of Dr. King continue to flow through our daily living. May we have the courage of Dr. King as we continue to stand up for justice, reconciliation, and truth, despite the challenge and controversy. Dr. King went to the mountaintop. He saw the promised land, and he reassured us we will get there one day. May that be no paradisal dream, but a reality in our own time. And now let us sing and affirm together the aspiration from We Would Be One. The mission of Community Unitarian Universalist Congregation is the covenant of this congregation. Would all the members and visitors who would like to affirm it along with me? We covenant to nurture each other in our spiritual journeys, foster compassion and understanding within and beyond our community, and engage in service to transform ourselves and our world.
In 2016, the Afro-Cuban composer Tania Leon was a guest of ours at our Music at CUUC concert series. This is an early work of hers called Rondo a la Criolla. She apparently wrote it while she was working as pianist for Dance Theater of Harlem in the late 1960s.
We're ready for the first slide, Rachel. One of our sources of Unitarian Universalism lifts up the words and deeds of prophetic people, people who, in the spirit of Dr. King's teaching, challenge us to dream, teach us to love, and who pave a path toward justice. I consider Dr. King a prophet and believe there are many prophets who grace this earth. Kelly Starling Lyon's poem, Drumbeat for Change, reminds us to have faith, press on, remember what we hold inside, and honor the power of people who persevered. In Ms. Lyon's beautiful words, the world feels upside down sometimes, like a twisted house of mirrors, where people in charge are bullies, where protesters of racism are pummeled, where being who you are can put your life on the line. What do we do with the worry, the hurt, the rage? We turn it into something bigger than us. We turn it into change. Together we are a mountain no one can destroy. Having faith doesn't mean we're fearless. It means we believe and press on toward love, toward equality, toward a safer, stronger future. We press on and stay true to what we know is right. Throughout history, kids like you were right there with picket signs and petitions, with heart and humility, with bravery and brilliance. They changed this world for the better, and you will too. Tell your story to anyone who will listen, to hear it yourself. You matter, you matter, you matter. Say it with me and believe, I matter, I matter, I matter. Beautiful you, I am in awe of who you are and will be. The drumbeat of hope always drowns out the howls of hate. Can you hear it? Can you feel it? When you feel angry or afraid, remember what you hold inside. Kindness, courage, compassion. The power of people who made a way out of no way. The power of people who persevered and toppled injustice live in you always. March to that drumbeat of hope. March and know you are never alone. Showing up and speaking out, pressing for justice, having each other's backs, we will create change. May it be so.
Hi, this is Tom Wacht. I'm the chair of the Committee on Ministry. This year, as a part of our annual study, we're going to be studying racism through the lens of racial bias, with a focus on how we as individuals and as a congregation have experienced it, can recognize it, have, whether consciously or unconsciously, participated in it, and how we individually and together can address this important concern. Recognizing that this is an all-encompassing topic, we are briefly surveying individual members and will separately engage with CUUC's various committees to discuss how each of us, as members of the CUUC community, can engage in this essential work. A survey has gone out online for everybody, and there also are written surveys available which can be printed out if you connect with the church administration. We just wanted to remind everybody to please give your attention to this. It's a very important topic. We rely on your thoughtful input. And please remember that we will have the survey open until Wednesday, January 26th. But please don't delay until the last minute. Get to it as soon as you can. And in the meantime, stay safe and stay well. Thank you.
We pray. Dear reality, We see hateful actions on our televisions and maybe in our faces. We see a virus that has killed 2 million worldwide and is now rampaging at more than 13,000 deaths a day. Divisions are and have been breaking us apart. We long to be held by unbreakable, unshakable, and infinite love. Yet we know that we too must do the work to make our community and world a place filled with love and with justice. May we not turn from that work. Though parts of us would like to forget the events of this week happening in our world, we choose to face you, reality, and to behold and bear witness to all that you are. We choose to recognize and not deny our feelings of sadness, anger, helplessness, confusion, disgust. And as we work through those feelings, may we step along the path of compassion. May we be ever watchful for the rising in us of hatred, racial prejudice, of lack of love in the small and big ways that we can easily not realize. No matter how good we think we are, we must attend to embodying love in every action and in every word we say. We hold in our hearts Uganda, where a hotly contested election was marked by violence and dozens have been killed. We hold in our hearts the Netherlands, where the Dutch coalition government is in danger of collapse over a scandal over child benefits lasting 8 years. We hold in our hearts Indonesia, a passenger jet carrying 50 people went down. We hold in our hearts the loved ones of the dozens killed in Syria by Israeli airstrikes apparently targeting positions and armed depots of Iran-backed forces there. We light a candle today to remember and honor Edith Cates, 60-year member of this congregation who died Wednesday morning. So for all that has been shared and for all else that we hold in our hearts unspoken, we observe 30 seconds of silence. Blessed be. Amen.
Calling all you hungry hearts, everywhere through endless time. You who wander, you who thirst, I offer you this heart of mine. Calling all you hungry spirits, all the lost and the left behind. All I can, I'll share with you, your joy and your sorrow, I make it mine.
Nathaniel Dett was born on the Canadian side of the border around Niagara Falls in 1882. He prefaces the second movement of his Cinnamon Grove Suite for piano with these verses by the Bengali poet Tagore. When thou commandest me to sing, it seems that my heart would break with pride, and I look to thy face, and tears come to my eyes.
Our practices of the week this winter feature a selection of slogans to live by. The invitation is to take the slogan to heart and try to live by it. To help you integrate the slogan, try journaling about it. This week's slogan is Get Excited. Excitement is energy plus positive emotion, and it's part of joy, passion, and having fun. It doesn't have to be a 10 on your own personal thrill-o-meter. Even a 2 is a nice plus for your day. So, what gets you excited, even a little bit? Music? Seeing the moon? Doing something new? Of course, if you're sick or burdened, you can't get excited. And if you can't, that's a sign, in case you didn't know, that something isn't right. You may need to look at gradually making more room for passion in your life, more room for delight, eagerness, energy, enthusiasm, and joy. So find something that excites you, even just a bit, and really feel the enjoyment in it. See if you can intensify the experience through a quick inhalation, a sense perhaps of energy rising in your body. Lift your chest and head, let more aliveness come into your face. Register this feeling of excitement and make room for it in your body. Then, as you go through your day, notice what moves your own thrill-o-meter, particularly in subtle ways. Look for things to get excited about. For the rest of Rick Hansen's method for getting excitement into your life, see the post at CUUCmatters.org. The link is in your eCommunitarian.
Please sing along with the First Unitarian Church of Baltimore, our hymn number 1017, We Are Building a New Way.
We are building a new way. We are building a new way.
I have recently been remembering a story from 20 years ago. I was doing a unit of clinical pastoral education, CPE, as a part of my training to be a minister. Clinical pastoral education usually involves being in a hospital, working and learning as essentially a chaplain intern. I did a unit at a psychiatric hospital. On my first day, the 4 or 5 of us who were beginning our CPE unit together were getting an orientation to this psychiatric hospital. Part of this orientation included the hospital director coming and talking to us about the place. And toward the end of his briefing, he told us a story. He said, "There was one week when we admitted 3 Jesuses here. I did the initial interview with each of them, and when I got to the 3rd one, it was the end of the week, and at one point I said to him, 'You know, we have 2 other people here who say, as you do, that they are Jesus.' And the patient replied, 'Oh, they're crazy.'" It's easy to see how other people are crazy. It's not so easy to see our own craziness. Not so easy. Psychiatrist M. Scott Peck said that mental health is an ongoing process of dedication to reality at all costs. Dedication to reality. We are seeing a disturbing and alarming number of people these days who have come untethered from reality. Millions of our fellow Americans believe the election was stolen. Now, people filter ambiguous information through their ideological lens, preferring interpretations that favor their political affiliations. You and I also filter ambiguous information through our ideological lens. What we're seeing going on around us is more extreme than the normal sort of universal human tendency to filter information and interpret it in a way that fits our ideology. People don't typically cling to a belief that contradicts all available evidence. Another factor is that people want to believe the world is predictable rather than chaotic. So accidental miscounting or random error isn't as satisfying as intentional fraud. We want to see an intent behind what happened, whether it's an evil intent or a benign intent. It makes the world explicable rather than mysterious and uncertain. It satisfies our desire to see the world as orderly. Attributing misfortunes to an unseen enemy or a network of enemies can help people cope with feelings of lack of control in their lives. In an election held during a pandemic, that urge may be particularly strong. In any case, we will not be able to talk them into reality. Evidence and reasoning are the tools through which we pursue our own ongoing dedication to reality, trying to remind ourselves continually of our own biases as we go. Evidence and reasoning will not bring someone else to reality. Sometimes it is possible to love them into reality. If they feel their world is safe, that they will be taken care of, they have a certain level of security, then they can tolerate the uncertainty of reality a little better. As David Brooks put it, they are not going to attach to reality until they feel that somebody cares and sees and hears them. If pouring loving kindness and empathy and care on the deluded is something you are able to do. You have the capacity for it. And if it won't put you in any danger, that's something that will help. Calling people out, or as we like to say, calling them in, is useful for folk that can be called in. But anyone today that is convinced the 2020 election was stolen is beyond that call. Love them as you can, or distance yourself from them as you must, but evidence and reasoning will do nothing. The other thing to do is keep up your own dedication to reality at all costs. It's not easy for any of us. We all have such built-in biases. Be ready to change your opinion. Be ready to shift. Better yet, don't have opinions on subjects about which it isn't necessary that you have an opinion. Go ahead and be surprised. I heard from a lot of sources after the storming of the Capitol that they weren't surprised. Look at America's history and the things that we've seen in the last 4 years. This was predictable, they said. If it was so predictable, how come none of these folks did predict it? Certainly there were some folks who were worried that the planned rally might get messy, but no one, as far as I've been able to determine, predicted that the Capitol would be breached while lawmakers and aides barricaded themselves in offices, closets, and conference rooms. In these claims of not being surprised, I see at work the hindsight phenomena, the human need to create a story after the fact that makes it all seem predictable. If we convince ourselves that it was predictable, then we have a story that gives us a feeling of security and eases the anxiety of uncertainty, even if it's a story of prevalent evil. There is no shame in being surprised. It means you learned something. The wonderful people at the MLK Institute put out a statement about the attacks on the Capitol, and these are good people doing good work. The statement began, "Did we have any doubts about the pervasiveness and power of white supremacy or about the stark contrasts between law enforcement's responses to those who violently attacked our nation's Capitol building versus its utter suppression of nonviolent Black Lives Matter protests?" Now, I don't doubt that white supremacy is pervasive and powerful, but I had no idea it was going to manifest in the way it did on January 6th. And I'm pretty sure the MLK Institute didn't either. I understand that law enforcement's response to demonstrators sympathetic to racial equality tends to be different than to largely white demonstrators hostile to racial equality. But I also know that aggressive policing is bad policing. So I was open to the possibility that law enforcement's more restrained approach on January 6th might actually have been evidence-based. Turns out, it looks like it wasn't. I just want to urge us to be open and not locked into our story, any story. I want to urge us to the ongoing process of dedication to reality at all costs. Reality is sometimes uncomfortable, sometimes hard, sometimes painful, and dedication to it doesn't come easy, doesn't come naturally to brains built like ours, but a spirituality that fosters inner peace, compassion, and interconnection and oneness requires the ongoing work of dedication to reality. A spirituality that tries to abide in fairyland delusion will not work. You can't be present to what is without commitment to investigate what really is openly, with as few assumptions and preconceptions as possible. Adam?
This is another work by Tania León. This one is called Tumbao, and it's dedicated to the salsa legend Celia Cruz.
So, we ready to do some reality facing? I know that almost all of you individually and that we as a congregation do a lot of reality facing. Unitarian Universalists tend to be a people who are above average at being open to the evidence. Of course, like everyone, we necessarily interpret new evidence in a way to make it consistent with as many of our pre-existing understandings as possible, particularly the understandings that are more central for us. And some of those are no doubt misunderstandings, but we are, on the whole, not bad at shifting our understanding to align with the evidence. And there's no way not to do that, short of not interpreting new evidence and new experience at all, in which case they would be meaningless for us. All I can do is keep in mind some of my understandings are misunderstandings, and I don't know which ones. I might go further and acknowledge all of my understandings are misunderstandings to some extent. Some of my assumptions about the way the world is are quite settled and resilient. They are my way of being in the world, but there's no such thing as a complete understanding of anything. The ongoing process of dedication to reality at all costs, however, never stops. We may take occasional escapes into escapist fantasy novels or movies, but even these so-called escapes are ways of exploring in a kind of metaphor, new possibilities of understanding reality. As long as we don't take them literally, and as long as we come back when we're done, then that kind of escapism helps expand our reality rather than being a retreat from it. The stories that QAnon spins, on the other hand, might have started as an entertaining kind of escapism, but then they slid over into being taken literally, which made them a retreat from reality. Dedication to reality is ongoing self-discovery, for the world we learn about is not separate from ourself. Whatever is out there is also in some form in here. Dedication to reality is receptivity to the evidence about ourselves and about our world, and continually confronting our delusions. On this Martin Luther King Day weekend, let us recommit to the ongoing process of dedication to reality, which includes the reality of the meaning of race in the world around us. Not everybody's experience of life in this society is the same. Dedication to reality calls for curiosity about those differences, for they represent opportunities for learning. Different people experience life in our society differently. Sometimes that difference presents a disadvantage, and sometimes that disadvantage happens along racial lines. Unitarian Universalists are generally pretty good about recognizing this. We have tended to be among those making the moral arguments for racial equality. From the Brown versus Board decision in 1954 to the civil rights legislation of the 1960s to the shift in attitudes we saw last summer in response to George Floyd's murder. The moral arguments have never been enough to produce change. Results have come only when profit motives and international embarrassment were added to the moral case. Yet Unitarian Universalists throughout have been advocates for racial equality on moral grounds. Before the tipping point was reached and others whose stances were more determined by profit motives and international embarrassment got on the bandwagon. I am proud of us for being a little ahead of the curve on that. And yet, we Unitarian Universalists, the majority of us who are white, still have work to do. Dedication to reality is an ongoing, never-ending process. J.B.W. Tucker, a white man who identifies as a conservative theologian, plunged himself into an extensive review of the available statistics in 12 areas of our society: police, the war on drugs, prison and mass incarceration, criminal justice and the courts, education, employment, wealth, workplace, voting, media, and housing. His conclusion may not include anything you don't already know, but let us take a moment in our ongoing process of dedication to reality to remember together this reality. As Tucker puts it, so here's the reality. Black people in America can expect to have a harder time finding a job and be paid less for it when they do get it than white people. They can expect to have a harder time getting a loan and pay a higher price when they do. They can expect to have a harder time finding an apartment or a house, which may make it more likely that they end up in a bad neighborhood, which in turn can increase the risk of their children going to under-resourced schools, being over-policed, becoming involved with gangs, and can reduce their access to investment and disadvantage them in myriad other ways. They can expect to be viewed and treated as dangerous criminals when they enter a grocery store, hail a taxi, or even move into a neighborhood. They can expect to have a hard time getting accepted into college, struggle to make the same grades and receive the same treatment from professors and advisors once they're there, and have a harder time graduating. They can expect to be regularly pulled over or stopped while walking down the street for no reason whatsoever, and when they do, they can reasonably fear that they will then be the victim of all forms of mistreatment and misconduct, from police brutality to arrest to death. They can expect officers to operate under the assumption that they are guilty, and they can expect to be railroaded by the justice system, even to the point of being forced to take guilty pleas when they are innocent. If they were born in poverty, as a much larger percentage of them than white, they can reasonably expect to remain in poverty for their entire lives. And that's when they're doing their best to do everything right. Should they make a mistake, as many of us do, especially when we're young, they can expect to pay for it in ways that white people don't, often for the rest of their lives. They can expect to be treated as young criminals by their teachers, given harsher sentences, longer suspensions, quicker expulsions, etc., both of which remove them from school and expose them to violent elements in their neighborhoods or in the criminal justice system. They can expect to be arrested, charged, convicted, and imprisoned for offenses that a large percentage of whites consider part of being a teenager or a college student. They can expect stiffer charges, higher conviction rate, and longer sentences. And yes, Black mothers and fathers can reasonably fear that anytime their child walks out the door, he might get in trouble with the law, get arrested, have his entire future ruined, or even, yes, be shot and killed by a police officer for no reason but that he's Black. When that happens, they can expect that justice will not be served. And tens of millions of white people write it off, call them liars, disbelieve their stories when they tell us about their lives, and insist that systemic racism is not a significant problem in America. Can social change happen? Sometimes it happens accidentally, unintended consequences. And what we do intend never pans out quite like what we wanted. White supremacy morphs and adapts. Slavery officially ended and the sharecropping system recreated it under a different name. Brown versus Board officially ended segregation, but segregation continued, and there's segregation within integrated schools and much higher rates of suspension and expulsion for students of color. We can intend social change, but we have to keep adapting the intention. What can this congregation? What can Community Unitarian Universalist of White Plains, New York do about that? We are supporting the Black Lives Matter movement in a variety of ways. Check with our racial justice team for the ways they work to advance racial justice in our country. For a congregation of about 200 people, we punch above our weight when it comes to advancing justice. And there's more to do. Ongoing dedication to reality. For instance, can we make this congregation an enclave of interracial welcoming? Perhaps the most powerful thing we can do is to truly model what a community that welcomes diversity looks like. And as much as we would like to think we are there already, our members and visitors of color have told us otherwise. We need a clearer idea of the ways that racial biases seep into the way our congregation does things. And our Committee on Ministry has designed a survey to help us begin to see what many of us white folk have been blind to help clarify the forms of racial unwelcoming that we unconsciously perpetuate. The survey represents what's next in our collective ongoing dedication to reality at all costs. So please, if you haven't already, do take the online survey. The link is in your eCommunitarian. It will take you a few minutes. It might not be comfortable. Dedication to reality is worth this. So may it be so. And amen.
Please sing along with our congregation of 2018 for hymn 1018, Come and Go With Me.
To
Please say with me these words as we extinguish our chalices. As we've gathered, so we depart, to carry into the world who we are. People of free faith, seeking a deeper truth. People of love, resolved to build belonging.
Live, friends, your covenant to search for truth and meaning.
Go your ways, knowing not all answers to all things, yet seeking always the answer to one more thing than you know.
Go in peace.
If you've got troubles, then I've got them too. There isn't anything I wouldn't do for you. If we stick together, we can see it through. 'Cause you've got a friend in me. Yeah, you've got a friend in me. Now some other folks might be a little bit smarter than I am. Maybe, but none of them will ever love you the way I do. Just me and you, boy. And as the years go by, our friendship will never die. You're gonna see it's our destiny. You've got a friend in me. You've got a friend in me.
Juba Dance from The Sweet and the Bottoms is one of R. Nathaniel Dett's most popular piano solos. Here's what he writes about the music. Juba is the stamping on the ground with the foot and following it with 2 staccato pats of the hands in 2/4 time. At least 1/3 of the dancers keep time in this way while the others dance. Sometimes all will combine together in order to urge on a solo dancer to more frantic and at the same time more fantastic endeavors. The orchestra usually consists of a single fiddler perched high on a box or a table, who, forgetful of self in the rather hilarious excitement of the hour, does the impossible in the way of double stopping and bowing.